January 5th, 2024. Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, climbing. Minutes after takeoff from Portland, Oregon, a piece of the plane's side explodes. Right in mid-flight. A hole the size of a door. Open sky in the middle of the cabin. Passengers in the adjacent rows manage to grab their seats. The man sitting next to the empty seat is sucked out so hard that his shirt is ripped off. The child next to him is nearly thrown into the sky. The plane depressurizes. The pilots make an emergency descent. It all happens at an altitude of 4,000 meters. No one is killed, only because the seat next to the hole just happens to be empty. This is MAX 737. Again, the same plane that 5 years earlier had claimed 346 lives in 2 crashes. The same plane that had been grounded, inspected, refitted, and launched again with the assurance that everything was different now. Nothing had changed. 19,089. Boeing enters the market with the 737. Simple, reliable, and inexpensive to maintain. Airlines adore it. Pilots know it by heart. It becomes the best-selling passenger jet in aviation history. Boeing is more than just a company. It is a symbol of American technological superiority. Safety is at the core of their brand. 2011. A competitor, the European Airbus, is launching the A320neo. A new engine, fuel economy is up to 20%. American Airlines, the largest American carrier, begins purchase negotiations. Boeing is in a panic. If American Airlines goes to Airbus, it's not just a lost deal, it's a loss of status. Boeing offers American Airlines the following. We'll build a new airplane just for you. It'll be ready sooner than Airbus. It'll be cheaper to maintain. And best of all, your pilots won't need retraining. No simulators, no extra hours, just get in and fly. American Airlines signs the contract. The 737th MAX is born. There's one problem. The old 737 was designed with engines of a certain size. The new, more efficient engines are larger in diameter. They can't be mounted in the same place. They have to be moved forward and higher. This shifts the center of gravity. The plane begins to pull its nose up under certain flight conditions. Too much. Engineers are developing a solution. The MCAS system is short for Maneuverability Enhancement System. Essentially, it's an autopilot that automatically pitches the aircraft's nose down when it detects an excessively steep angle. The idea is sound. The implementation is deadly. The ICAS system relies on a single angle of attack sensor. Just one. If this sensor malfunctions, providing incorrect data, the system begins to pitch the nose down, over and over again, regardless of what the pilots do. From Boeing documents that would surface later, one engineer wrote to colleagues in a letter in 2017 about the ICAS system. This could lead to catastrophic failure. The letter was ignored. Boeing did not fully disclose the existence of the ICAS system to the Federal Aviation Administration. The Federal Aviation Administration is the regulator that issues flight permits. In 2016, the regulator approved Boeing's request to remove all references to the ICAS from the pilot's manual. The official reason? To keep the document simple. The real reason? If pilots learned about the new system, airlines would require simulator training. Simulator training costs time and money, and Boeing promised the airlines no training. Another detail would later come to light. American Airlines paid Boeing a bonus for each aircraft certified without simulator requirements. $1 million per aircraft if pilots didn't need simulator training. The money went directly from the airline to the manufacturer. The financial incentive to conceal the existence of the new control system was direct and very specific. October 29, 2018. Lion Air Flight 610, Jakarta, Indonesia. The plane takes off at 6:30 a.m. Among the 189 passengers and crew are 20 employees of the Indonesian Ministry of Finance on a business trip. A young couple on their honeymoon, members of the national swimming team. 13 minutes later, the plane crashes into the Java Sea. There are 189 people on board. There are no survivors. An investigation begins immediately. The black box data shows that the angle of attack sensor was giving incorrect readings. The ICAS system was triggered again and again. The pilots struggled with the controls for 11 minutes. For 11 minutes, they pulled back on the control column, and the computer kept pulling the nose down. The computer won. What does Boeing do after the first crash? Send out a memo to the pilots. The memo contains instructions on how to handle an emergency situation where the nose is pulled down. There's no mention of the ICAS system. There's no mention of the system even existing. The plane continues to fly. The Federal Aviation Administration continues to clear flights. March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Takeoff. 6 minutes later, the plane crashes. 157 people on board. No survivors. Again, ICAC. Again, faulty sensor. Again, the pilots fought and lost. This time, they had 6 minutes. Total, 346 people, 2 planes. The same defect, the same management decision to withhold information. 132 days passed between the two disasters. March 13, 2019. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, the world's last major regulator, grounds the 737 MAX. China, Europe, Australia, and most of the rest of the world had already grounded it. The U.S. regulator waited almost 4 days after the second crash, 3 days and 21 hours. The aircraft was grounded for 20 months. In November 2020, after redesigning the ICAS system and months of inspections, it was cleared for flight again. In January 2021, Boeing entered into a settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice. It admitted to misleading statements, half-truths, and omissions regarding the ICAC system. It paid $2.5 billion. Of that, $500 million went to the families of the 346 victims. The remainder went to the airlines. Criminal prosecution was deferred. The deferred prosecution agreement was valid for 3 years until January 2024. January 5, 2024. Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, 737 MAX, again. Hole in the side. Depressurization. Child near the edge. No one dies. The investigation reveals that the door plug, a cover for an unused emergency exit, was not secured with bolts. 4 bolts were missing. They simply weren't installed at the factory. The manufacturer of this section was Spirit Aerosystems, a former Boeing division spun off in 2005. The aviation regulator is temporarily grounding 9 737 MAX aircraft for inspection. In February 2024, the Justice Department reopened the criminal investigation against Boeing. The deferred prosecution agreement expired, and Boeing was again under investigation. April 2024. U.S. Senate Hearings Investigative Committee. At the witness table are several people Boeing had spent years trying to silence. Ed Pearson is a former senior manager at the Boeing plant in Renton, Washington. He worked there from 2015 to 2018. It was that plant that produced the MAX 737. He testified at the hearing, "I tried to shut down production before both accidents. I described it as chaotic production and a dysfunctional safety culture. I reported directly to the then CEO. I was ignored." He also said, Boeing claimed it had no documentation of the door plug being removed before the Alaska Airlines incident. That's a lie. The documentation exists. I call that a criminal cover-up. He doesn't mince words. That's exactly what he says. Joe Jacobson, a former Federal Aviation Administration engineer and aviation safety technical expert, testified at the hearing. After the first crash, I reviewed the black box data and immediately identified a design flaw. I reported this to 3 managers. They were skeptical. Boeing hid the ICAS design from the regulator because it feared the regulator would require additional certification and training. Had we known, at least 6 experienced engineers in our Seattle office would have immediately rejected the original ICAS design. Boeing's concealment of information led to 2 crashes and the deaths of 346 people. Sam Salapur is a current Boeing quality engineer. He testifies at the hearing. I have serious concerns about the safety of wide-body aircraft, the Boeing 787 and 777. The fuselage is not assembled correctly. After thousands of pressure cycles, the structure can begin to fail. I reported it to management. I was transferred to another project. I was moved away from the problem I raised. According to the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Boeing has received 32 whistleblower complaints since 2020. In 2024, the Federal Aviation Administration received 126 worker complaints with concerns about Boeing safety. In 2023, there were 11 such complaints, 11 times more in a single year. Now about two people who did not live to see these hearings. John Barnett. He worked at Boeing for 32 years. He was a quality manager. He recorded defects in the production of 787 aircraft in South Carolina. In 2017, he filed a formal complaint with the Federal Aviation Administration. Defective parts were being used, documents were being falsified, and quality was being sacrificed for speed. That same year, the regulator ordered Boeing to take corrective action, meaning the complaint was found to be justified. Boeing began harassing Barnett internally. He left Boeing in 2017 with diagnoses of PTSD, anxiety disorder, and depression, which he attributed to the pressure they had placed on him. He filed a lawsuit against Boeing for unlawful harassment and continued to testify in court cases. March 9, 2024. Barnett failed to appear for another day of testimony. He was found in his orange pickup truck in the parking lot of a Holiday Inn in Charleston, South Carolina. He had suffered a gunshot wound. The coroner ruled suicide following a period of severe personal stress related to the Boeing lawsuit. He was 62 years old. There was a note in a notebook found in his truck. The words were harsh, but the meaning was clear. He wrote, "I pray that those who ruined my life pay. I pray that Boeing pays." Shortly before his death, Barnett told his girlfriend, "If something happens, know that it's not suicide. I love life too much. I still have so much to do." April 21, 2024. 43 days after Barnett's death, Joshua Dean, 45, a former quality inspector at Spirit Aerosystems, the manufacturer of the 737 MAX's airframe sections, called the emergency room. He was having difficulty breathing. Tests showed the flu and MRSA, a rare antibiotic-resistant bacterium. Dean was known among colleagues and family as a very healthy man. He almost never got sick. In normal times, he didn't even have a primary care physician because he didn't go to one. April 30th, Dean dies in the hospital of pneumonia, possibly a stroke. He was 45 years old. In October 2022, he reported improperly drilled holes in a fuselage section of the 737 MAX. In April 2023, he was fired, officially due to layoffs. Dean believed it was retaliation and filed a complaint with the regulator for wrongful dismissal. Both whistleblowers, Barnett and Dean, were represented by the same attorney, Brian Knowles. After their deaths, more than a dozen new whistleblowers immediately came forward with similar allegations. The deaths spurred people to speak out, not remain silent. July 2024. Boeing agrees to plead guilty to criminal fraud, pay up to $487 million. December 2024. A federal court judge rejects the plea agreement. The plea agreement is insufficient. January 2025. Boeing and the Justice Department fail to reach a new plea agreement. The case continues. March 2025. John Barnett's family files a wrongful death lawsuit. The lawsuit claims that PTSD, depression, and anxiety caused by Boeing's illegal actions against him led him to take his own life. This isn't a lawsuit filed by investigators, it's a lawsuit filed by his mother. She says, "If this hadn't dragged on for so long, my son would still be alive." 24 years ago, Boeing was a symbol of safety. Today, the company posted a loss of $4.3 billion for 2024. Its credit rating is teetering on the brink of junk status. The aviation regulator has limited production to 38 aircraft per month. CEO Dave Calhoun announced his retirement in March 2024 and left his position at the end of the year. 346 people died in 2 crashes. Paul Njoroge lost his wife, 3 children, and mother-in-law, all at once, in the Ethiopian Airlines crash. He hasn't missed a single Boeing annual shareholder meeting since. He stands at the entrance with signs. He's not demanding money. He's demanding criminal prosecution of those who decided to conceal the information. Hundreds of thousands of people board planes called the 737 MAX every day. Those who warned about the problems were fired, persecuted, or even died. The company paid the fines and continues to operate. One question remained unanswered in 2025. None of the Boeing executives who decided to conceal information about the MCAS system from the regulator went to prison. Not a single one. 346 people died, and not a single one went to jail for it. This isn't a story about planes crashing. It's a story about how decisions are made and who's responsible for them.